On February 28, 2026, 30 hypersonic missiles struck a precise set of coordinates in Tehran. In a matter of seconds, they bypassed thousands of guards and eliminated the supreme leader of Iran, a man who had spent 36 years as one of the most heavily protected individuals on the planet. But that strike was the culmination of a 10-year waiting game. Back in 2018, Mossad agents cut through iron safes in a Tehran warehouse, stealing half a ton of classified documents. The files proved a harsh reality. Constantly bombing physical nuclear sites was failing. The regime simply relocated and rebuilt them. The Israeli War Cabinet realized that infrastructure wasn't the bottleneck. Leadership was. As long as the inner circle driving the nuclear ambition remained intact, labs would always reappear. Neutralizing that core team became the only way to stop the cycle of reconstruction, but doing so immediately would have risked a full-scale international war. The 30-acre Pasteur Street compound was locked down by 3 perimeters of elite guards and mobile phone jammers. If breached, he could instantly retreat down a reinforced elevator to a 5-kilometer subterranean bunker connecting to hidden emergency exits across Tehran. They faced a brutal choice: strike immediately and face geopolitical isolation, or wait and risk a nuclear-armed adversary. Israel chose a decade of strategic delay, taking the time to build the perfect trap while waiting for the diplomatic landscape to shift. To make a future strike viable, Israel first needed flawless real-time intelligence. They had to map every move within that fortress. They started by exploiting a remote execution bug in Chinese-manufactured security cameras installed throughout Tehran. Unit 8200 hackers compromised the firmware, quietly routing live surveillance feeds from streets, alleys, and the compound's parking lot directly back to Israel. Realizing they were being watched, Iranian security teams adapted. They stripped electronic gadgets from the inner circle and wired the entire Pasteur compound with physical fiber optic cables. Because data travels through light pulses inside a fiber cable, it emits 0 external radio signals for spies to intercept. But human error still existed. Whenever a guard used a walkie-talkie or a satellite phone, U.S. Orion satellites hovering in orbit captured the transmission. That raw signal data was instantly beamed to the CIA's Pine Gap tracking facility in the Australian desert for processing. To make sense of millions of hours of stolen video and intercepted calls, the Pentagon utilized Palantir's Maven AI. In 90 minutes, the software mapped the Supreme Leader's entire pattern of life. It learned the exact shifts of his guards, the specific car he rode in, and even analyzed his walking posture to identify body doubles. The intelligence net was complete. Israel knew where their target was at almost any given second, yet pulling the trigger still required a political green light they didn't have. The Biden administration had been clear throughout 2024. They explicitly warned Israel that the U.S. would not support major retaliatory strikes that might ignite a broader Middle Eastern war. Then, the events of October 7th shifted the political landscape. Public sympathy moved toward Israel, allowing them to frame a potential strike not just as a fight against local proxies, but as a necessary move against the regime funding them. A decisive change arrived in November 2024 with the election of Donald Trump. Backed by major donors demanding hardline action, his incoming administration provided the explicit military support Israel needed. With the political leash removed, Israeli planners waited for a tactical opening. On February 27, 2026, undercover assets confirmed a deviation in routine. The Supreme Leader and 40 top officials were scheduling a morning meeting on the surface of the compound rather than inside the underground bunker. This was the precise window they had waited a decade for. They had total intelligence precision and diplomatic coverage to act. The strike was authorized. At 7:30 a.m. the next morning, a joint U.S.-Israeli strike force lifted off. Squadrons of F-35s and F-15s carved a direct aerial corridor toward Tehran. Before they could reach the capital, the jets had to bypass an overlapping shield of Russian-built S-300 and Bavar 373 air defense systems. Flying into that grid without suppressing it was practically a suicide mission. As the jets approached, Unit 8200 activated dormant malware within those defense systems. Across Tehran, targeting computers glitched, and radar screens went blank. As a failsafe, the U.S. Navy deployed specialized EA-18 Growler aircraft over the Persian Gulf. They blasted the airspace with intense electromagnetic jamming waves, reducing any surviving radar signals to pure static noise. At exactly 9:40 a.m., the strike force reached the compound. They released 30 Blue Sparrow missiles. Hit at hypersonic speeds, the surface meeting room was destroyed instantly, along with the regime's entire command structure. Years of concrete reinforcement and physical guards were rendered useless by a synchronized combination of invisible cyber warfare and overwhelming air power. 12 minutes after the bombs fell, millions of Iranians looked at their phones. A popular religious app called Bade Sabah, installed on devices across the country, suddenly broadcast a stark push notification. It read, "Help has arrived." A second message immediately followed, ordering the National Army to surrender. The strike extended far beyond the physical crater. Intelligence agencies had completely compromised the daily digital infrastructure of the entire population. They tracked the leaders via satellites and spoke directly to the citizens via their own smartphones. This operation stands as a case study in strategic restraint. Military technology is a tool, but patience is the weapon. Victory required the discipline to build the capability and the absolute geopolitical weight for the exact moment the world